Good afternoon, all, to everybody who joined from New Zealand, and morning all to everyone who's joined from Australia and the other part of the world. Welcome to the Sigist event for the month of June. For those who don't know me, I am Ronak Panchal. I am one of the digital chapter leads for ASB. Me and my team are accountable for the quality of the digital customer experiences for all the banking customers and also for the software deliveries that go out. A bit of a background for me, I've been in the QA engineering practice for over 16 years now, and yeah, I'm quite passionate about testing. Outside work, I'm also the board member of Australia New Zealand Testing Board. So ANZTB is a not-for-profit organization which helps shape the QA engineering practice in Australia and New Zealand. We are affiliated with ISTQB, which means that we run all the ISTQB offerings in Australia and New Zealand. Uh, we like I said, we run exams too, ISTQB exams, and we partner with ISKI. ISKI is our official exam partner who helps facilitate the exams of ISTQB. A word of caution here, guys, there are a lot of fake testing certification in the market. So if you see a testing certification, if it is not ISTQB or ANZTB or ISKI, it may not be an authentic ISTQB certification. We on the board are also constantly working on updating the syllabus of the exams, just so that they are relevant and current to the changing market. One of the thing we also do is run Sigist events. So Sigist stands for Special Interest Group in Software Testing. So this is like a learning platform where testers collaborate and share knowledge. So this is one of the sessions here, and I'm quite excited about it because the topic is really interesting. So today's agenda, this presentation would be about 30 minutes, and we'll have 15 minutes towards the end for the question. So guys, you may have either joined through YouTube or through Facebook. So feel free to comment or ask questions on the YouTube chat or Facebook chat, and then we'll take all the questions towards the end. So we genuinely want to keep this more of an interactive session. So don't feel shy. Just share the questions and please keep them coming. So today we have got Abdul. Abdul joins us live from Melbourne. He works for Infosys, and he will kindly share his thoughts on the trends and challenging in data quality post COVID era. Welcome, Abdul.
Thank you, Ronak. It's a pleasure to be part of this forum and also the discussion. For those of you who want to know who I am, so I'm Abdul Sattar, and I currently work as a senior program manager and also the program test director for the public sector accounts. And currently, I'm associated with Services Australia, which was previously called Department of Human Services. Currently, we're working on a large transformation program where we are working with Pega and Tricentis Tosca as a tool set to deliver some of the testing capabilities across functional, non-functional uh, areas. So that's pretty much a quick summary of what I do. And I've also got my master's from Melbourne Uni in information systems. With that quick background, let's get into the agenda for the day. So is that is everyone able to see the screen? So it
Yes.
will be fine.
Yeah. You can do this as a full screen now,
Yeah,
Abdul.
that's what I'm doing. Some challenges here. You're not able
Uh,
to.
at at the
Yes.
bottom, if you see, there's a link there.
Yeah, I'm
Come
just
down on the right. Yep, down, down.
Are you guys able to see it?
Or if you're comfortable this way, that's good too. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think we just function if I would do it, but still not. Okay, that's all right. So it's just a bit of introduction. So just we wanted to have a quick discussion around how does the digital data quality engineering trends look like in terms of what are the trends and challenges that we see in the post-COVID era? That's something that we wanted to bring in and have a quick discussion with all of you to understand where we are heading in terms of quality engineering trends and challenges. Post the COVID, you understand the challenges that we faced through and a lot of things that have happened. Moving on. So what you will be covering today is just the next slide.
Yep, you're in control, so you could click on the
Yeah,
next slide, Abdul.
yeah. There's some challenges on not able to navigate. One second. Yep, it worked now. Sorry. Thanks. So, in terms of digital data quality engineering, what we've seen is there's a lot of significance in terms of our quality engineering practice. From the clients that we work with across the various verticals, what we're seeing is there's a lot of modernization activity happening with respect to our data sources that we bring in our data from, and how we get our insights or meaningful insights with the new patterns, and also keeping up with the digital adoption trend that we're seeing. Some of the key trends that we look at is in terms of our cloud first strategy, and also with various customers in terms of what are the various data science platforms or AML based test data management capabilities is something that we see. So what we will cover today is looking at what are the key trends and what you look at in terms of the evolution towards your digital data ecosystem. We will also look at some of the digital data QE offerings for the future in order for us to address some of these data validation challenges. And we will cover what we've got to offer from Infosys in terms of data quality engineering platform, where we look at a hyper automation platform. And finally, we'll finish with some data quality engineering horizon roadmap for the future for digital enterprises. And this is just what we see in terms of the early adopters and some of those that are picking up. With this context, so let me just go through some of the key trends that we see in terms of our cloud first strategy. Please stop me if you have any questions. We'll have a Q&A session at the end, so just put up your hand, just post your questions whenever. Please feel free, and we want it to be more of an interactive session than a one-way podcast.
Yeah, apologies, Abdul. We can still just see the first main screen. Is that what you're meaning to share? We can only see the intro
The
screen.
is that the digital data quality engineering, the key trends and emerging patterns? Is that what you can see?
No, I could just see your cover.
Okay.
Maybe try resharing your screen. That might help,
Yeah,
please.
that should help, I think. So let me. Is it okay now?
Uh, do you mind switching slides, please? We can still see the first one.
Okay, I've just moved to the next slide for some reason.
No. Have you tried sharing like your full screen?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
Ah,
So,
yeah, yep, yep. Now it works. Yes, now you're on the second slide. Yep, that's what we see.
okay. Are you able to see
Yep.
the third screen at all? Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. So I think just let me recap what we would have for today. So it's the key trends in terms of our emerging patterns in the data space. We will discuss about the evolution towards a digital data ecosystem. We will also look at the digital data QE offerings for the future and how the data validation challenges that we face, and what we have to offer from Infosys in terms of data quality engineering platform. And finally, we'll also look at data quality engineering horizon map for future digital enterprises. So this is what we will cover today. With this context in mind, let's get started with the digital data quality engineering key trends. In the post-COVID era, what some of the trends that we see is with respect to our cloud-first strategy. And in terms of cloud-first strategy, what we've seen is there is a lot of increased accessibility for agile analytical capability with cloud and new demands coming in terms of data migration onto the cloud. We're also seeing data enrichment for social media feeds, and the real-time data processing has taken up a key place. We've also seen large-scale data processing, We have moved from big data to smaller and wider data. We are also looking at data privacy and self-service capabilities in terms of dashboards and a lot of tool sets where the team members or the stakeholders can go and have a look at it firsthand, and also increased requirements for AI and ML capabilities as well. So that is also in high demand.
Yeah.
And some of the key
Apologies,
trends.
Abdul. Sorry. We're still on the second slide. Are you meaning to be on the third slide?
No, no, I'm on the second slide. Yes, I'm
Yeah.
still on the second
Perfect.
slide.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're
Okay.
good. We're good there. Thanks. Yeah, so the key trends in terms of our what we see with our customers, that we work across different verticals in terms of retail, banking, and few others with respect to our insurance partners as well. So we see a lot of multi or a poly cloud adoption, and there's a lot of data science platforms coming into picture, and there is also predictive AI and ML based test data management suites that are being built, and there is a lot of heterogeneous data validation strategies that are coming into play. All this has to be put together with respect to a seamless automation capability so that we access our systems and we also certify from the data quality standpoint. So these are some of the trends that we see in terms of digital data quality engineering space, and this is across all the verticals that we see in the post-COVID era. Moving on, so the evolution towards a digital data ecosystem. So what you see here in terms of where we are heading with respect to the evolution from a digital data standpoint. So we started before 2005 and before that. So if you look at it, so we had a lot of legacy systems where there were a lot of services and apps, and data was a separate entity sitting outside the platforms and infra. And as we move towards the cloud journey, so where we started building the foundation capabilities, so we also looked at some analytical capabilities, and big data was the keyword. Then we also looked at warehouses, large data warehouses where there's a lot of data being pumped in through ETLs or a lot of mechanisms. From the cloud journey, we also moved to our digital journey where the cognitive data aspect, the digital data fabric aspect, and also the microservices and containers, connected data, data services, and also AI based automation picked up. What we see would be the next trend beyond 2022 and beyond is in terms of how do we get real time insights. So, this has been there for quite some time, but we have the tool sets that can help us. What are the digital twins for prescriptive analysis? What do we do with respect to our connected enterprise and partner ecosystems? How do we bring in this boundaryless data across the enterprises in order to have some good insights? And there is a lot of bots or digital bots and cognitive capabilities that we are building in the data space and testing. And we are also looking at some persona driven customizations that you might be aware of through customer 360 or one customer view that come into play. With all this in mind, I think one of the key factors that everybody talks about is in terms of your security and the privacy of how do we preserve the data and how do we enrich the asset that we have without compromising on the security features or the privacy features based on the region and the compliance and regulatory requirements that are posed for each of those regions that we operate in. So some of the things that I think on the left hand side, what you see is with respect to the old way of working in terms of your DBMS, your ETLs, and what happens to your data catalogs and stuff, and how we have progressed towards cloud serverless architecture, and where what do we do in terms of ML and DQ capabilities. And moving beyond would be more about your graph and your data exchanges and your AI driven engineering and more of ML capabilities and cognitive intelligence that is being built in terms of data validation capabilities. And also looking at intelligence, consent governance, and your differential privacy. In summary, from this, the key takeaway from this particular evolution towards the digital data ecosystem could be, I think the trend is more towards AI and ML and also the bots and cognitive capabilities with focus on security and privacy. I think that should be the key takeaway from this particular slide. Yeah, one of the information that I just want to share is in terms of in 2022, there's talk about 95% of data sharing programs are failing due to the lack of trusted quality data. I think this is the quality of data that we validate, or most of the programs, I think It is really hard to do the reconciliation exercises and come back with the actual to prove or stamp that the data that we validate is really up to the mark. I think those are some of the challenges that we are facing in today's ecosystem. With this, let's move on to the next slide.
Yeah, Abdul, still the slide hasn't been moving. Yes, the screen shows on the second one, unfortunately.
Let me check where we are. Is it moving now?
Yes, it is now. Yes. So we are on third now.
Yes, we are on third slide. Yes. So I think, yeah, I've been talking on third slide for quite some time. So this is what I wanted to cover in terms of our legacy systems, our cloud journey, our digital journey, and the future digital enterprise. So this is something that the key takeaway from this particular slide would be in terms of your AI and ML capabilities, along with your bots and how securely or how do we address the security and the privacy concerns of our customers. So these are some of the evolution trends that we see in the data ecosystem. And moving on, are you able to see the slide? Anup?
Yes, yes, perfect, Abdul.
Awesome, thank you. So this is the digital data QE offerings for the future to address these challenges that we discussed about in terms of your the various challenges that we see in the data ecosystem. These are some of the trends that you might see with respect to your databases and platforms. So there's a lot of talk about platforms. We are looking at how we stream our pipelines and look at our pipelines and how we stream that data in a real-time environment. Also looking at the various ways of how we consume data. So today it is not just one or two systems, and the sources have varied. We've got heterogeneous sources, and how do we consume all of it? And what do we do with all this data, and how do we seamlessly integrate it into our production environment? So with respect to data ops, so how do we combine data and operations together, and how do we build a governance model around it in order for us to deliver a very viable and a very business capable solution, along with our data privacy capability? So these are some of the ways in which we can address some of these challenges that we have. And what sort of QE roadmap can we come up with to address this in terms of your quality engineering strategies? What sort of innovative solutions that we can bring into the table, and also look at our people skills? How do we upskill the current skill set that we have? What are the key tools and technologies, and also some of those mindsets that we need to change in order for us to achieve these outcomes? With along with the support from the key partnerships, either through your vendor alliance partners or your co-creation partnerships. And we can also have some talks and leverage the startup ecosystem to see what solutions they can bring in to the wider group. So this is some of the validation challenges that we have, and some of the digital roadmap that the organization can look at in order for us to progress through these challenges. So I'll quickly touch on some of the QE strategies. So some of the strategies that we need to look at is adopt fail fast and fail safe strategies, where you trial something smaller and look at it, look at the results, do the corrective actions, take the feedback loop, and then start working on newer strategies. And also establish living labs and sandboxes, and like we discussed, build POCs to for key domains and for key use cases. And moving on to the innovation or innovative solutions, build some of the key solutions throughout the data lifecycle, not as one separate area. Please look at it from an overall end-to-end gamut of things. And also leveraging some of the native cloud and cognitive technologies that are already available for us within the landscape that we currently operate in. And focus on platform-based low code, no code solutions, so that there's minimal intervention and there is maximum output. And we discussed on the people skill sets. One thing that we look at is how do we, from Infosys standpoint, we also have a lot of courses and a lot of training mechanisms for us to move our traditional test analyst to a quality engineer through our SDET programs, and also look at our developers or DevOps skill sets. So we get a whole package from the tester. Is the traditional tester that we see is no more a traditional tester. He's more of a SDET capability, where he comes with the development, operations, and a few other skill sets along with testing and analysis. And we also work with a lot of our partners, alliance vendors, and create a lot of solutions which are co-created, would have the best outcomes for the customers that we work with. And also working with startup ecosystem would be a better approach for the future. So these would be some of the strategies that we can look at in order for us to address some of these challenges that we might face in our data platforms through our streaming, in terms of your how do you consume your data and what sort of operations and governance challenges that you might face in, and also looking at your masking and your privacy and your data discovery and all the privacy related and the security related aspects. Okay, so with this, let's move on to the next aspect of our presentation, where I'd just like to introduce the Infosys Data Quality Engineering Platform, which is just one single platform, which is an hyper automation platform for an end-to-end data validation. What we look at is the various challenges that we discussed earlier. So on the left hand side, what you see is in terms of how do we address our real-time data processing capabilities along with our batch processing capabilities. So even today we see that the trend from batch to the real-time processing is increasing, and there is more of real-time data that we need to consume, and they are very heterogeneous in nature, and they're not the standard feeds that you would see today. We have multiple source systems, multiple gadgets, and multiple mobile, and a lot of different channels through which we integrate our source data. And looking at our cloud and agile and DevOps adoption, we work in a poly or a multi-cloud, multi-tenant environment. How do we capture all those scenarios into our one single? How do we analyze, or how do we validate and verify the information that is coming through? Also looking at your open source and closed loop AI based smart solutions. So these are some of the challenges. And what at Infosys, what we do is, we've built a capability which is our hyper automation platform, which is a low code no code solution. And what we've also looked at is building some smart AI capabilities or solutions which are embedded within it. We've also seamlessly integrated it with a lot of test effect and test management tool sets, and which this particular integration also helps us with some complex data integration workflows that can be brought in. And we also have a lot of plugins or pluggable software which is just plug and play. We've got 289 plus, and this number is constantly increasing. And we also have 45 plus solutions that help us with all these. So all these solutions and pluggable processes have come together to form this hyper data quality engineering platform, which is an hyper automation platform. So this is one shop that can help us, and it's technology agnostic and also cloud native. So some of the key features that I just want to call out is it has a data pipeline feature. It has the DevOps integration for continuous integration and continuous delivery pipelines. So either so via REST and APIs. We also look at our intelligent automation capability within the platform. We have our data trials capability. We also have the integration or the seamless integration that we talked about through two external tool sets for test and defect management. And also finally, in order for us to look at the results and reporting, we have a reporting capability built as well. So this is like one big a lot of features, a lot of components put together for us to come up with one hyper automation platform. A lot of organizations are moving towards such a trend where you bring in all the various capabilities or several solutions that are sitting in a different isolated fashion or working as silos. We bring them together to address some of the challenges that we would face in terms of our data validation challenges that we might face in our day-to-day life from the data standpoint. And with respect to the benefits, this is a single platform for entire data validation lifecycle. We also have 100% coverage for all data validation, and we have seen 40% of effort saving with this particular tool set. And there's 100% reusable data validation pipeline template. So what happens is you come up with a reusable pattern, define a template, and that template can be reused for a similar problem that you want to solve. So this particular capability is also a key benefit with respect to this tool set. And there's one case study that's been mentioned there, a leading apparel retailer in North America. So we had validated millions of online transactions data to cloud by leveraging our data pipelines for quality assurance. So this is one of the case studies that we have, where we have used this particular platform and we were able to validate a large volume of data. With this, let me move on to the final slide. So, Ronak, are you able to see the slide?
Yes, we can now. Yes, we can.
Awesome. Thank you. So, this is a horizon roadmap for the future digital enterprise that we see in terms of the early adopters of what we see with respect to there's a greater 80% or greater than 70% adoption, and but there is this trend is declining in terms of these core areas. So, these core areas we've classified as databases and appliances. We've looked at data pipelines and streams. We've also looked at how we consume the data, which is the consumption aspect of it. And finally, how do we store and reuse and maintain the data with respect to our operations and governance capabilities? So, what you see from the left to the right is in terms of what do we see in terms of our adoption with our customers and whether it is growing or declining, and where are we with respect to the future trends from the horizon. So, what you see here is just looking at the first block here. So from the databases and appliances perspective, we are moving from data migration validations to cloud databases to just if you just pass through from left to right, you would see that we are moving from data migration validation to AI/ML based sanity validations, and also certification of our data science platforms. So we are slowly moving towards the platforms. And from the pipeline perspective, ETL validations, ELT, so all these is we're moving towards the data lake, and from data lake we are now moving to data fabric and data mesh validations. And we're also looking at reverse ETL validations for right data. And that is something that we see is the adoption is in just less than 5%, but they are still in pilot stages. So the last block that you see are some of the future trends that we see where some of our clients are ahead in the game and they're doing some POCs. What we also see is the box in the middle where we see there's a lot of growth area that we see in terms of your capabilities from our core areas perspective. From the data consumption perspective, we see that the report validations has moved from a static to a real-time visualization and analytics validation. And also there is also there's been a movement with respect to prescriptive self-service capability. So a lot of reporting is today self-service, where we have the patterns established, and the data visualization or validation mechanisms are happening from the end user or the consumer perspective, where they're able to go and fetch the data that they need on the fly and on at any time that they need. So it's more about the way we consume data. So earlier we used to have some CAN reports and ad hoc reports being generated were very minimal, but I think now we've moved to a real-time visualization and analytics validations. We still have a lot of report validations that happen on a day-to-day basis for insights and for decision making, but the trend on real-time visualization is catching up. So that's where it is. The adoption is less than 30% is what we see at this stage. And finally, looking at our data ops and governance capability, so the data quality checks that we do, and also looking at our data masking capability. Some of these have moved to ML-based test data management and data uh, technologies, where we use the AI/ML algorithms and look at how we drive our data quality, and also some of our cognitive data ops capability to monitor how our systems are performing and throughout the life cycle of our data. So, and the final stage in terms of our data ops and governance, where we see a lot of pilots that's currently happening, is in terms of your self-healing capabilities for your data quality, and also some AI certifications, and responsible AI is another topic that's being discussed. And how do we differentiate the privacy validations and for responsible AI, and what are the trends that we can look at in terms of our security and privacy capabilities without uh, with key focus on the compliance and regulatory requirements from the region and also from the organization standpoint. Yeah, so with this, we come to a conclusion of our today's presentation from the PAC's perspective. I think we'd like to hear from the audience and look at what questions you guys have got, and we'll take it from there, Ronak.
Thanks, Abdul. There are not many questions on the chat. So, guys, if you guys got any question, please feel free to ask them here. Abdul will be more than happy to answer them. Just one
Sure.
question for now. Like, is this presentation been recorded? Yes, all of our Sigist presentation are recorded, and you could find that on our Anztb website. Post this presentation, Abdul would also kindly share these slides, which would also be uploaded at on our website. That's the only one. So while the others are typing question, I'm assuming. Do you mind if I ask a couple of questions, Abdul?
Sure, go for it.
So firstly, based on the limited knowledge I've got around, data validation or data warehousing validations, the biggest challenge here is the data volume and the test environment.
Yep.
When, in the test environment, mostly the data has been corrupted. How do you manage those challenges
Yeah.
around
So
data volume and environment?
So organizations increasingly what we see now is in terms of volumes for testing. So in the non-prod environment, so they're slowly moving away from using the actual prod data. So we have started seeing a trend where there's a lot of focus on manufactured data. We have tool sets that can pump in the data. If you give the volume and if you pump in the business rules, you should be able to get the data set that you need in order for us to progress with the actual data. So that's with respect to your question around how do we address some of the data challenges that we have. The second thing we also see is looking at slicing and dicing for using some predictive algorithms to come up with the actual scenario based data sets. So those reusable data sets can be moved to non-prod environments after doing the actual sanitization of what it is. So slowly there's a trend of using more of manufactured data than using the prod data. Once you start hitting prod data, then the volumes would be very difficult for us to manage unless you are
Sure.
in a sit environment or a pre-prod environment. So there is, I think we should try and move to manufactured data in the lower environments. So that
Cool.
would yeah, that would also help us achieve some of the shift left outcomes that we want to achieve. That's one thing. The second thing with respect to our test environments and how do we do all that. So I think most of us would be aware, given that we are moving on to cloud and a lot of these environments could be stood up in a way that we need it. So this can also be integrated into our CI/CD pipeline, where we have certain environments available for certain amount of time for certain specific activities, and then we retire them and we are able to stand them up instead of having a constant environment that has a dedicated and that's about our memory usage, and that also adds to the cost in terms of how we stand up those environments.
Cool. Thanks, Abdul. There's another question. How do
Yeah.
you manage test data cleanup if the data is spread and linked with complex systems?
Yeah, that's right. So usually, organizations of the scales that we have worked with, so there should be an enterprise-wide action. So that if you're managing a smaller team where there's a smaller platform where we have a regular interval, we look at data, we create a golden copy of data, we do a refresh of that data for that particular golden copy, so that we make sure that the data is current. The currency of data is a key challenge across all organizations, and it is very difficult for us to have that model as long as the data is in the enterprise. So most of the time what we see is the data that is managed at an enterprise level or enterprise platforms or enterprise level environments have a very stable set of data that we need. But most of the time the data sets that are managed by smaller teams that are working in silos, you might see some of these challenges that we have. To answer your question, there are a few things that we can take or to avoid such challenges. One of them would be for you to have a regular calendar to look at the releases that have gone in and then try and retrofit what you've got. And there are cases where you might also need to have a new data set just to see, because the data set that you're working with might be very old and might be deprecated as well. So it is always good to have that support from the business SMEs and also look at some of the stakeholders to have a data governance practice to just refresh the data in the non-prod environments on a regular basis.
Cool. Great question, Vignesh. I've got another one from Himanshu. What
Okay.
do you think how we can meet the skill set or enhance skill set on some of aspects you talked about?
Yeah, so skill sets is a key challenge across the region and also outside the region. So we understand that from, I could answer this from my experience with Infosys. So currently, we picked up our overall program for automation, and automation first was our approach. So when you bring in the team members, so you see skill sets or you see the various skill sets the composition of the team is made of various skill sets. We go through the norming forming and the normal trends that we talk about in terms of team management. But once that is done, I think there should be a strong path or a strong training plan in place for the team members to take through, or they'd have to be taken through a journey, and they need to be understanding the reason for that journey as well. So I think it has to be both ways, from the team members that we work with, and also from the organization standpoint. We need to set the goals and the expectations clearly. With that, we should also have certain measurable goals that we can have with the team. So in our case, we have regular conversations with the teams. We also have our testing capability that supports us with all the material that we need, and we also do a lot of hands-on exercises. We also do certifications. So we have different mechanisms to get the team so from the beginner state to an expert state. So we have a buddy system as well. So we work with a buddy system where an experienced person helps somebody who's new in the team, and they are asked to go ahead and work independently once they're confident on certain addressing certain things. Hope that answers your question.
Cool. Thanks, Abdul. That's all we had from a questions point of view. Thank you, Abdul. This is really insightful. This is one area which I feel don't get a lot of attention, but it is quite important given that data is the new currency. There's another question from Sudhi. Thanks, Sudhi. Thanks, Abdul. What are the factors n- need to be taken into account while manufacturing data? Many times, it's certain type of data in production that leads to failures.
That's right. So I think if we work on a data set without the stakeholders involved, the key thing that we've learned is make sure that you engage all the business stakeholders and the SMEs and the architects along with your data scientists early. So once you have this core group established, then you understand your overall linkages and look at the key business functions that you want to manufacture the data for, and then solve the business problem through understanding your data sets and your data payloads. So most of the time, what we see is we're trying to create a data set or a data payload that covers just the few scenarios or the limited scenarios that the team is aware of. And once you start executing your tests, you would realize that the manufactured data set that you have doesn't cover the overall scheme of things or doesn't cover the larger picture. So it would be good for us to go and have those initial conversations, define those key data elements that we want to have, and then start jumping or start looking at our manufactured data set. So that way you would avoid some of those conditions or some of those outliers that we might see in your manufactured data capability. So I think one more activity that can help us avoid the situation of not having enough data or the right data in the manufactured data set would be to define the key pipelines or the key data elements, and along with your key data payload elements that has to be part of the manufactured process with the linkages in place as well.
Cool. Thanks for the really good question. I'll just wait for another 5 seconds just to see if there are any last minute questions coming in.
Sure.
Yeah, that feels that's all we got from a questions point of view. So, hey, firstly, thank you, Abdul, for making time. Like I said earlier, this was genuinely insightful. And yeah, again, I'm sure everybody had got something out of this. So, yeah, guys, if you've got any further question, I'm sure Abdul would be happy to have a chat with you guys. So, feel free to reach out to him. And again, his contact details would be there in the slides that you
Sure,
get from
I'm
the
happy to
website.
take. If you have any questions, please feel free to shoot me an email or just give me a call as well. That should be fine. I'll share this deck with the team. I think you can publish it as well, Ronak.
Cool. Thank you, Abdul. So yeah, guys. So like I said, this forum is for us testers. So guys, if you feel that you've got something to share with the testing community in Australia and New Zealand, please reach out because we genuinely want to keep this forum as value driven. And our goal here is to share knowledge as much as we can. Just so we pretty much be the best testing community in the world. That's Australia and New Zealand testing community. So, guys, if you've got anything to share, please reach out to either me or write to info@anztb.com org, and we'll line you up for the next presentation. And I just wanted to end by like wishing everybody joining from New Zealand like happy Matariki. So for the others who don't know, this is a new public holiday tomorrow. So Matariki is the Maori's New Year, and we celebrate by reflecting on the past and then sharing a meal with the friends and planning for the future. So yeah, have a good long weekend all for everybody who's joined for New Zealand. And yeah, this is the end of it. So thank you guys. Thank you for your time. Take care, all.
Thank you so
See you.
much. Thank you, guys. It's
Bye.
been a pleasure. Thank you.